Today we are going to discuss Drik Drishya, the seer and the seen. Vedanta philosophy describes at great length the distinction between seer or Drik or Sakshi and the seen or Drishya, the subject Vishayi and the object Vishaya, the pair Drik Drishya Vishayi Vishaya, and the ego aham and non-ego idam, aham and idam. The seer is the perceiver, identical with the subject and the ego, and is of the nature of consciousness and intelligence. The seen is the thing perceived, identical with the object of non-ego, and is insentient by nature. The seer is all sentiency. Therefore, the seer and the seen, the subject and the object, the ego and the non-ego are mutually opposed and must never be identified with each other. If one associates the attributes of the subject with the object, or vice versa, those of the object with the subject, one is a victim of an illusory superimposition, the result of one's own ignorance. Superimposition is nothing but the result of one's own ignorance. That is why all the superimposed things are not perceived same to everyone else. One object we perceive in a different way according to our vasana, according to our ignorance, according to our superimposition. The same women are considered as the wife of a person. The same woman is considered as the mother of a person. The same woman is considered as daughter, as sister, as friend, as relatives. Everything is superimposition. But it depends on the level of ignorance. Yes, it is a matter of common experience that in daily practical life, people do not distinguish between the subject and the object, but superimpose the attributes of the one upon the other. Through ignorance, they confuse the subject with the object. This confusion is observable in every action and thought of our daily life and is expressed in such common statements as this is I or this is mine, whereby we identify the I, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, with such material objects as the body, the mind, the senses, house or country, On account of the same confusion, we associate the eternal self with such characteristics of the body as birth, growth, disease, and death. And this confusion is expressed in such statements as I am born, I am growing, I am sick, or I am dying. Discrimination between the seer and the seen is the road leading to the realization of truth. The seer is the unchangeable and homogeneous consciousness. There is no ripple. It's completely homogeneous. Or the knowing principle, you can tell. It is the perceiver, the subject, the real ego. The seen is what is perceived. It is outside the seer and therefore identical with the object. It is matter, non-self, and non-ego. Suppose you are watching through computer or mobile phone. So you are watching something else. Can you claim I am mobile phone or I am laptop? Of course not. Because you are the seer and the mobile or laptop or computer is the seen. So whatever you can see is not you. Seer and the seen cannot be one. That should be understood first. So I can see my body, this body, that the leather bag filled with all the filled cough, cold, blood, urine, stool, bones, the beautiful leather bag. I can see. So it should not be I. I can observe that, oh, I'm down today. I'm suffering from depression. I'm suffering from anxiety. Means I can observe my mind. So I am not the mind. That discrimination should be there. That is the thing. That discrimination will lead us to the truth. Discriminations between the seer and the seen is the road leading to the realization of truth. The seer sees an object because the seer is one and unchanging. The various objects of the world, different from one another owing to size, color, or shape, and changeable by nature, are perceived by the eye. The eye itself, relatively speaking, is one and unchanging. The same is also true of the other senses, namely the ear, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. Again, the eye with its changing characteristics of blindness, dullness, or keenness is the object, and the mind, the subject, because the mind, relatively speaking, is a unity. Finally, the mind endowed with such changing characteristics as desire, doubt, determination, constancy, belief, fear, fearlessness, anxiety, depression is the object, and it is perceived by the self or consciousness, because the latter is a unity. The self, unlike the senses and the mind, is the ultimate subject or perceiver. The consciousness belonging to the self eternally exists. One cannot speak of its birth, growth, decay, or death. If consciousness possessed such attributes, then there would have to be a perceiver of these. That is the main thing with the Buddhism, with the nihilist, Shunyavadi. They tell that the reality is void, Shunya, and everything has come out from Shunya, from void. In Bhagavad Gita is clearly mentioned, Nashato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha. From unreal, real can come. From real, unreal can come. And with the other hand, yes, I acknowledge you, oh my revered Buddhist fellow, that everything has come out from void. And everything will go into void. Good, I acknowledge you, I appreciate you wholeheartedly. But my small question in my innocent mind, that who knows it? Who knows it? I am ignorant, but who knows it that I am ignorant? The consciousness belonging to the self eternally exists. One cannot speak of its birth, growth, I told you. If consciousness possessed such attributes, then there would have to be a perceiver of this. And who would be that perceiver? Another self or consciousness? If many Chaitanyas, many consciousness is there, then there will be a fallacy of philosophy. Suppose you are telling, I know you, you know him, he knows XYZ. And if you consider that there are many consciousness, then who are the ultimate seer of those? There would be a fallacy of philosophy. The inquiry ends in an infinite regress. The existence of the self or consciousness cannot finally be doubted, because the doubter himself is the self or conscious entity. It cannot be denied, because the denier himself is the self or conscious entity. The presence of an irrefragable self or consciousness dominates every phase of thinking, and without it, no thinking is possible. Because whom we consider as thinker is an inert. Vedanta concludes, therefore, that all entities, from the gross, tangible objects in the outside world to the mind, uh, must be of the nature of the scene, the object. They are by nature insentient, jada, and changing. But the self or consciousness is the true seer or subject, unchanging knowledge. It can never be imagined to be insentient or non intelligent. As the Upanishad declares, the knower can never be imagined to be bereft of knowledge. It is pure consciousness, which is Atman in man and Brahman in the universe. The aim of Vedanta is to prove the reality of Atma and Brahman and their complete identity. Hari Om Tat Sat.